thing here. This is
So while Cris goes, let me just say that I have a new number one again in terms of my power ratings. The Rams have eked out the number one spot in my particular power ratings. It's still pretty close at the top. I think no one would argue that on neutral ground, Kansas City would still be favored over at least 28 other teams, if not 29 or 30 other teams. So I still have Kansas City barely as my second overall power rated pick. Seattle's still way up there. Baltimore's inching up. Obviously, Philadelphia with its new roster, you've seen Jalen Phillips really get to the point where 2 games he's already acclimated, 11 tackles, 2 sacks. Philly's defense is right there, top 3 in the league. So we're bunched up again at the top of the power rating chain.
Well, it certainly has been a strange season, and teams have, you know what, they kind of went the direction that they went and haven't changed, if that makes any sense. It's not like there's, other than Baltimore, there's not any steaming, workhorses coming out of nowhere, completely unexpectedly. New England and Indianapolis started off strong from the gate. So did Denver. The Bears have, been winning consistently. The Rams have. I mean, all these teams have been winning consistently.
Yeah. No, really, we're starting to see very few teams are left in the playoff hunt. For example, in the AFC, we're probably looking at 8 teams for 7 positions, if I'm correct. Jacksonville has the tiebreaker against both the Chargers and the Chiefs. Talked about it last week. We said it was a big game for the Chargers last week. It was also a big game for the Jacksonville because I thought they would be on the outside looking in if they lost that game to the Chargers. Now they're with an easier schedule than the Chargers. They're in the playoff picture.
I did see one little surprise I'll talk about when we get to the game, but let's go back. Do we have a hard stop this week?
I would say 12:30 West Coast time if we can.
Okay, and then we're going to be on next Tuesday, not Wednesday, probably at noon. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll go back to noon on Tuesday. Appreciate Cris for making accommodations for me this week. Tomorrow, celebrate my wife's birthday. We're going out of town. The daughter and son-in-law will be joining us. We'll have them through Thanksgiving. So we're pretty excited to balance the football with the non-football. And so we get out a little earlier today.
Jets and the Patriots. That worked out well for me. Kind of middle both ends of it, and felt very strongly the Patriots would find a way to win the game. But I felt that the Jets would not be affected by those trades and would be playing hard, and they did play hard.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Jets when we get to their game this week, but obviously Justin Fields is so limited he couldn't take advantage of New England wanting you to pass the ball. And New England said, hey, we're facing Justin Fields, so let's make him pass the ball. And a lot of his passes went 3 yards downfield. No Garrett Wilson. There's not much to say about it. It looked like a mismatch, a lot of points, and it finished near the point spread.
Washington and Miami. I'm a broken record on these Euro games, just becoming just bizarre games that put you through the ringer. And this one put me through the ringer again. Another overtime game, another 2-sided teaser. Both sides of the teasers win, and having to wait to make sure Washington didn't lose by more than 3 in overtime.
So my day started slowly because I had zero interest in either game. In retrospect, I probably said, okay, Washington is a 3-point dog. Maybe I should have taken them. 2 bad teams. All I saw were numerous strange coaching decisions by both teams, especially Miami, who escaped with the win. flip a coin in that particular type of game. I guess both teams did travel back from their off overseas trip. So we still get Washington, Miami, but not this week. We don't have to talk about them this week.
The Packers and the Giants, I didn't have anything in that game. I stayed off of it, and that game went about as expected. I didn't learn anything from that game, frankly. I don't think the Green Bay came out of it, looking all that swell. So, coming off that Philadelphia game, you'd think that they might come a lot stronger if they had the ability to, and they didn't.
The funny thing about our conversations is that, we bounce ideas off one another. Sometimes we slightly influence each other, but mainly we stick to our models and our metrics and our matchups and stuff like that. So this was a game I had and you didn't have. It's amazing how many times that you have a game and I don't, and I have a game. And this game I was involved in because I like the New York Giants. I like getting over the 7 points where it was 7.5 most of the last 48 hours. I like Jameis Winston in the lineup as opposed to Russell Wilson. I would have been in big trouble with him. And the added benefit is if Jameis Winston went south, it was probably going to produce a high scoring game. So I threw in a play on the overs in case Jameis Winston went south, and it worked out to get the overs and the game involved. And like you said, in a week where there were no surprises for me, or very few surprises, which means I guess I'm in tune, because I know there'll be a week somewhere along the line where I make mistakes. But in this particular one, this is the way I thought the game would go.
Well, I want to make a comment about this coming week before we start this coming week. Remind me. Tampa Bay and Buffalo, that was a pretty wild game, actually. It really looked like Tampa was going to be able to be in a position to not only cover, but they had a decent shot of looking like they were going to walk away with that game somehow, which I expected them to be feisty and able to be in the game. And I was on Tampa Bay and lost it late, and that was a bummer.
Yeah, with these teams and the way they play defense, and Buffalo's cluster injuries have been there again on the defensive line. So that gave Tampa hope. Obviously, scoring 32 points, you expect to cover. The back door is always going to be open in this kind of game. And even getting behind 12, the back door was still open. It just didn't happen. Another game that I didn't have, I thought Buffalo, it wouldn't have shocked me if Buffalo was down to the wire in this game. I just didn't know how much Tampa had left with this stretch of games where they played the Rams, they played, they're going to play the Rams, they played Buffalo. They've just kind of been in a funny stretch, and it's not going to be for a couple weeks until Tampa gets the schedule advantage.
The Bengals and the Steelers, it just felt like that game could have gone a different way. Obviously, the Bengals were a little worrisome when they became what we call a public dog, where the average person liked Cincinnati. So that's when you know you're in trouble. Sure enough, Pittsburgh found a way to cover, but certainly it wasn't an impressive fashion. And Aaron Rodgers' wrist potentially broken. He still may play this week somehow, but we're waiting on news on that.
If you're ever going to have a game where you have a quarterback who hasn't taken a snap play, Mason Rudolph, who's familiar with the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the Steelers system, he gets to play Cincinnati without Hendrickson. They're last in the league in sacks, even with Hendrickson. This is going to be a clean pocket day for a Pittsburgh quarterback. This should have been my top play of the week. It ended up being second because I liked another game better. I love Mike Tomlin. I love the long-term trends and situations that he has. We didn't have situations 2 weeks ago. We had 4 the previous week. We had a couple that I really liked that were specific to this rivalry and to what Pittsburgh has done. Pittsburgh was a very important play for me. And as the game went on, well, especially when they got in, what was it, a pick six or something? At that point, there was no point. I didn't see any way since he was going to get back in the game. And I don't mind Mason Rudolph, especially against a team like Cincinnati.
Houston and the Titans, Houston wasn't able to cover the spread, and they actually had some problems. Obviously Mills was in the lineup, and that was the Titans were in a position to possibly win that game. So a little disappointing there. I expected Houston to kind of shut Tennessee down with that defense of theirs, and they were unable to do so. But they covered teasers or parlays on the money line, so semi-okay for me there.
Yeah, I didn't take a position in the game. I understood the line movement. I think it opened around 7.5, closed around 6, maybe even 5.5. That was way too low to get involved for me, for a team that had basically not been competitive all season long. But Houston just hasn't fired on all cylinders offensively. They're still not really pushing the pile in the run game. They won mainly because they're a little bit more used to winning than Tennessee is. This wasn't a great spot for Houston, but I didn't want to get involved.
The Bears and the Vikings. The only thing I can pat myself on the back on is that I stayed out of being eliminated from the VEASAN Invitational. So I live to play another week. And what I thought was funny was the Minnesota was the most selected team in the contest, and my best bet was the Bears. So that's my only pat on the back for myself. Is the Bears winning outright didn't surprise me.
Yeah, Bertie asked a question where I get my situational information. It's all personally driven. Some of it goes back to when I started doing this 35, 40 years ago. And some of it is just based on schedule analysis, which, as people know, I put together, quite an autopsy of how the season is. So I have those kinds of situations where you had teams off buys, teams off short weeks, teams off tough divisional games. And then the situational data goes back from team history, all the stuff I've compiled manually for 35, 40 years. Some of it is verified with just looking back at old point spreads. Dr. Bob runs a whole bunch of situations. I kind of looked at some of those at one point and saw which ones were relevant and which ones were not, and piggybacked on that. There are a couple others in the field that have done that. But most of my situations are personally driven. And because the coaches change over so much these days, I just want to add that I don't have as many situations, especially middle of the year, as I used to. In fact, this week I have maybe 2 or 3 games with situations. So it's kind of the dog days of summer, like baseball. You don't have as many situations. So you work on matchup analysis and power ratings, the other 2 areas that are important to me. Chicago, Minnesota. Speaking of situations, long-term says you're supposed to take 3 points and the dog in this series. But I also looked at turnover data. I even tweeted about turnover data, that some of it is a little bit too random for me. And I thought Chicago could regress with turnovers. And so I kind of stayed away from it just in case Chicago imploded a little bit. But then again, J.J. McCarthy, 3rd or 4th career start, and he was probably going to be more turnover prone in this particular game. I'm okay with staying on the sidelines in this one. Minnesota has dug itself a really big hole.
I have a hard time getting in front of the moving train. So, when a team's on a winning streak, the last thing I want to do is to predict when that's going to stop. You can only lose once when you're riding with a streak, but you can lose a lot if you're trying to predict when a streak ends. So my question to you is, we are familiar with turnover regression when, a team is getting too few or too many. History says that that's going to turn around. But has that turned around for the Jets? When San Francisco went to the Super Bowl, weren't they, plus 20 something or more? Sometimes things just continue to go. I'd have a hard time making that a strong consideration for why I want to play a team or stay away from a team. How strong of a decision is it for you?
It's a stronger, it's a great point because it's a stronger situation for the next year as opposed to the next week or the next two. It really tends to regress, except for when you have, you analyze the quarterbacks, and if all that is random and stuff like that, then you analyze the amount of fumbles lost and the amount of fumbles recovered. Because even though people were adept at punching out fumbles, fumble recovery is still more random than not random. So in season, if a lot of your turnover differential plus or minus is due to fumble differential, then you can use it in season. Otherwise, teams like the Bears, they tend to build on that and they get more confident and they get more aggressive in the defense. So they don't always experience turnover regression. But the flip side is if somebody's -8 or -9, like San Francisco was, and then they play a team that's not going to take the ball away as much like Arizona, we could probably have predicted turnover positive regression for San Francisco last week. That's what I was trying to point out.
Carolina and Atlanta. We've lost Penix for the season. That's the latest update. He's going into surgery. We get Kirk Cousins back. I don't even remember what happened in that game. I wasn't involved in that game.
All right, I'll talk a little about a game that I think I mentioned on the show. If Atlanta went to 3, I was going to end up playing them. Luckily, they went to 4 instead of 3. But I did, my one blemish on the week, I really appreciate last week, was I did take Atlanta in one money line parlay. I needed to close one money line parlay. I was pretty comfortable with Atlanta. God, I hate their coaching staff. I'd rate their coaching staff 32nd in the league. I know Penix is very mechanical in the way he does business. I'm not a fan of his. But boy, if you allow 448 yards to Bryce Young, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's bizarre. I couldn't believe it. I didn't realize that until I was looking at box scores Monday. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know. I mean, every time you want to close the book, I want to close the book on Bryce Young and said there's such a low ceiling. And then he throws for 448. I'm going to say, well, they're going to keep him.
Chargers and Jaguars. Now, that one was a big surprise. That was a painful loss. It doesn't surprise me that the Chargers, didn't walk away with a win. It was the way they didn't walk away with the win. We know Herbert got banged up along the way, and he had to leave the game for a bit. But that was an unusual Harbaugh coach team result, as far as I'm concerned. Jacksonville had not been playing well in recency, and I just did not think there was much of a chance of them being able to win the game by more than a touchdown, and they won by significantly more.
On paper, this looked like a surprise, and in matchup analysis, I thought, well, it's going to be close, but somehow the Chargers were going to pull it out. But I think both last week on Wednesday and definitely with Ted on the Inside Blitz on Thursday, I made a comment about that line because I set that particular line 4.5 and the line was 3. And I was trying to rack my brain. Why is the line 3? Why is the line 3? What are the odds makers trying to tell us? And sometimes they're trying to tell us something. And then the line on Sunday was mostly 2.5 and 3. I think it pretty much closed at 2.5. And I'm saying, well, I can't take the Jags. Yeah, I'm getting bad value. But I think they're trying to tell us that the right side is the Jags. And by kickoff, I just thought the right side is the Jags for no other reason than watching the line movement in this game.
Seattle and the Rams, boy, that was an interesting game with Darnold and his 4 turnovers. Um, Seattle settled for field goals instead of touchdowns.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. They had a chance to win the game at the end, but couldn't quite do it. It just seemed like Seattle did everything they could possibly do to give away that game, yet they were in it at the end. If you can have the Rams as number 1 in your chart, but that chart's wrong. They are not the best team in the league. And when Seattle faces the Rams again, I want to see you bet your Rams. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, situationally, in the chess match, Sean McVay won that chess match in some respects in terms of what he forced Darnold to do. In some ways, Seattle won the chess match because they were the first team to match up with the Rams' 13 personnel. Yeah. 3 and 4 tight ends, it didn't even come close to working against Seattle. They really had a good plan against that particular team. Their defense is kind of built differently that way. I think Seattle was the better team, but obviously turnovers are worth points. And when you're -3 in the turnover ratio, you can't overcome anything like that. It's just game on the line. I still would rather trust McVay and Stafford over Darnold. It just came down to personnel because I think Seattle's every bit as good as the Rams. Power rating wise, they were 2 and 3 last week. Now they're 1 and 3. So it's not like they've fallen off a cliff for me.
Yeah, that's the wild card is, we're talking regular season at this point. Do I have the confidence in Darnold with high leverage situation of playoffs? No.
Yeah, that's an issue. That's an issue.
So, if it was regular season, I would take Seattle all day long. I think that they're the better team, but we're just going to have to see. That's what's going to make these playoffs interesting.
Yeah, it'll be a grab bag in the playoffs for both leagues, I think.
So, an NFL record number of completions made in the Arizona game.
Oh, 47?
47 completions. I think he had an 82% completion percentage too, didn't he?
37 of 47. So whatever that comes out to.
That sounds about right. So pretty remarkable there, but that's all garbage time. Arizona was out of it within the first 5 minutes, and it was just a breeze for San Francisco. So, Arizona shows some fight, but if I remember correctly, the penalty situation was 17-1. You're not going to win it. You have no hope of winning a game when it's 17-1.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they were out of the game right away, and I didn't pay any attention to the game, so I can't cite facts and figures other than the fact that right from the get-go, you could tell that if San Francisco was not going to turn the ball over, they were -8 turnover ratio before the game. Now they're -5. If they even had flat turnovers, they were going to win this game, and that's what they did. Brock Purdy brings a different dimension. What I did see in highlights were some very smooth, easy throws. You don't have to worry about the mechanical stuff. You don't have to worry about him firing it too fast or not putting touch on the ball. He just brought a little extra dimension.
Yeah, they held CMC to his lowest yardage total for receiving. So that's the other note I had. The Ravens and the Browns, boy, they struggled. That was interesting. I know the Baltimore keeps on winning ugly.
Yeah. That was my biggest position. I like Cleveland a lot in this game at home against a Baltimore defense that I didn't think was still there yet. They had a long way to go. They were near the bottom in, I think, your model and in my metrics as well for a long, long time, Baltimore. And then offensively, Baltimore was facing a Cleveland defense that performs well at home. And obviously they have somebody who sacks the quarterback at an amazing rate. So there were a lot going for it. The only nervous time was when Shedeur Sanders came in the game because he's not an NFL quarterback. All of a sudden, there were some serious moments there for a guy who went 4 out of 16. And the game just completely flipped in terms of what was going on. But for much of that game, Cleveland was clearly the better team.
Yeah, the other issue on that game was that total. These home unders and the weather. And the weather actually seemed to be a lot better than expected. And I'm unaware that the weather affected it much, but somehow, some way, it landed on that 39. So I pushed on my contest entry in VSiN, so I lost a half a point. That game should have stayed under, but yeah. And Sanders did, boy, at least he's getting first team practice. He's never had first team reps, so he's going to have first team reps all week long, and then maybe they can get something out of him. I don't know. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Kansas City and Denver. That was. I don't know how Denver. I don't know what was happening in that game. It just seemed, because I wasn't watching visually. I was watching, on the betting apps, and it just seemed like Kansas City had the ball a lot, and they'd move the ball, and they wouldn't get any points from it. And and I could be wrong, but it just seems like a lot of blown chances, and they just allowed Denver to stay in the game, and Denver took advantage of opportunity at the end.
They played to Denver's pace. Again, everybody told us about how Andy Reid is great off rest, but I had to remind people, so is Sean Payton. Sean Payton has nearly as good a spread record, if I can recall, as does Andy Reid. And if it's not nearly, it's still a very plus spread record in that regard. So you're going to get both teams' best effort actually rested in the middle of the season compared to some of these other teams that are so injured. And it was a slugfest. You asked me at the end of the Inside Blitz show, isn't Denver an automatic play over 3? And I said, no, not really in this case. I think I sometimes I do get scared because I see what Mahomes can do. And everybody's saying, excuse me, everybody's saying that Mahomes, he doesn't look right or whatever. I think Mahomes is doing fine. I think it's Kansas City's 70% defense right now that's not doing that well. And obviously the lack of a running game with Pacheco out, Hunt getting his 3.5, 4 yards per carry and so on, they're one-dimensional. But Mahomes is fine. But just the fact that he was on the other side probably scared me from an automatic bet last week.
That defense doesn't seem to be holding water like it should. Let's see.
By point defense, it's not bad, but they're not in your face in the pass defense. And a lot of quarterbacks are completing a higher percentage of passes than usual against Kansas City.
I've got the Kansas City defense at 12.
Let me look at mine. Kansas City defense at 12. Where are they this week? Oh, they're a morning game. I probably have them like 14, 15, right in the range.
That Lion game was scary. I'm like dumbfounded. How you can just mandatorily go for it on 4th down every time in that type of game. That wasn't a shootout. If that game was a shootout, that's one thing. That never had the expectation it was ever going to be a shootout. Take the freaking field goal. There's no shame in it. If they had taken the field goals, they would have won the game. So I just really did. This is what I was worried about with Campbell. Yeah, we were patting him on the back against a mediocre Washington offense or defense, but I don't trust Campbell to make the right decisions if he's going to be the strategy guy. And he didn't. And he continued to make the same mistake. He should have taken the field goal. I think, for sure, 3 out of the 4 times he didn't.
Yeah, I can sit back and listen to what you have to say there. I mean, the bottom line is analytics is not as cut and dry as people make it out to be. When they flash that stupid stuff on the screen in these primetime games, 4th and 2, you go for it, 4th and 3. It depends on who you're playing, what personnel you have in the game, what the time of the game is at. Is it late in the first quarter? Is it the second quarter? Is it the fourth quarter? There's a million things that go into not putting up a random thing that you go for it, 4th and 3 at whatever. That's just not true, and it's insane. And Campbell violated the rule. I agree, 3 out of 4 times.
This is the first week where I'm getting sick of my timeline and these people in their commentary about when and when not to be going for 4th downs and such. STFU. That's all I got to say. It's like you don't have enough information to make that call, okay? Yeah. As you referenced, Ron, there are just so many variables involved with pace of play and history and personnel available. There is so much information that we don't have that they might have that is critical. I mean, maybe there's a matchup problem. Maybe there's an injury that we don't know about. There's so many things, so many moving parts involved with it. Yeah. I do know that Campbell made the wrong decisions there, because it was just simple to figure that one out. But there's a lot of these, I'm sick of my timeline getting wasted with, they should have done this. It's a no-brainer. He's an idiot. You don't.
I mean, a hidden fact is that stadiums are not all built the same, and the wind affects one side of the stadium more than another. And sometimes a guy, you say, he has 50-yard range, 55-yard range. That may be only from one side of an outdoor stadium. I mean, there's so many other factors that are hidden that we don't know about.
I'll tell you, I really needed that field goal at the end of that game, though. Jesus.
I was thinking of you.
My gosh. And then speaking of wacky endings, you know what? I had given up on, I had some Raiders plus 17.5, and I had given up on it because the Cowboys had the ball 1st and goal, over 2 minutes to go. And somehow I walked out and the game had ended on 17. And I understand that they were kneeing the ball before the 2-minute warning. And not only that, but that's the second time this season that's happened to the Raiders, where a team is kneeing the ball with more than 2 minutes to go. So,
they put in a call to Bill Belichick and they said, "Are you going to call timeouts?" And Bill said, "No, I'm not going to call timeouts this time. Last time I called a timeout, team scored a touchdown instead of taking a knee and changed the over/under on a game." So, Wake Forest, North Carolina, for those who didn't know what happened to Bill Belichick.
I think that, there is no team in this league that swings perception from one end to the other more than Dallas. I mean, they go from looking like, hot crap to all of a sudden potential, so fast and so hard. I mean, there's talk that Jerry's made all the right moves on these trades. And, when you really look at it, these pickups are helping out significantly. And as they get healthy again, they can do some damage. And they can only do so much this year. But, boy, they set up for the next, draft and going forward. These players are really helping out. I mean, the guy they got from the Jets had his best game of his career. And this touches on what I wanted to say about this week's games. I looked at the schedule this week, And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And the lines, I'm like, what the hell is this? I mean, so many games seem to have bizarre spreads to me just on a superficial look.
Okay.
And one of them was,
interesting.
how is Philadelphia only 3.5 at Dallas? And that was my immediate look. So it's a lot of people think that Dallas can really play, and that line just seemed like a shock to the system initially. And a lot of games this coming week are a shock to the system. But
final thoughts on the Philly-Dallas game. I think Dallas wins the battle but loses the war. What I mean by that is, their defense got better, and especially adding Williams on the front line, they definitely got better. We talked about that when the trades were made, that they were going to probably pick up a couple of extra wins because now they could stop the run a little bit better. And Ashton Genty did nothing. The problem is you lose the war because you gave up a first-round pick for him. And now you've got a guy who stops the run. But if you want to get to and win in the playoffs, it's not about stopping the run. It's about stopping the pass. It's about doing other things. So they will have a worse draft pick with the one pick that they still have, I believe, that will probably and worse than that is they'll only have one first-round draft pick instead of two. So in some respects, I think they lost the war. And one final thought on Vegas. Chip Kelly is a college guy. That's just the way it is. He can out-scheme smaller, not as fast college guys, and he can make things happen. He made it happen at Oregon. His system at UCLA was really taken hold before he left to go to Ohio State. And then they won a national championship with him at Ohio State with his offense. But in the NFL, he's done nothing to convince me that he has an edge in the NFL game.
I don't have an opinion on this, but is Gentry a disaster? I mean, we know he was overdrafted, but is this guy literally not going to do any damage in the league?
I think the answer could be yes. We don't know for sure. What I hate is when you don't have, put it this way, the NFL Combine doesn't tell you the whole story, but it gives you some kind of story. We never knew what Ashton Genty's 40 time was. And in my humble opinion, following the draft for 45 years, 40 times matter for running backs. Unless you're Earl Campbell and you can run over people, in the old days and stuff like that. Ashton Genty never had a 40 time that I knew whether or not he could get by people, whether he could juke people. I don't think he can run over people. The offensive line the Raiders have is probably a C-, but it's not the worst in the league. And he's not doing anything to create yards after contact, and he's not juking people out. And running backs don't move the win needle. I've said this how many times, Chris? They don't move the win needle unless you already have the quarterback in place. A running back by itself, be it O.J. Simpson or Barry Sanders, doesn't get you that far in the playoffs, gets you one playoff win in your career. Ashton Genty is probably a mistake because of that. And if his 40 time wasn't good, and if he's not as fast as we think he is, it's going to be worse. I have hopes for him that he'll be better once they get the quarterback position solved. But right now, it's not working.
Aiden O'Connell just activated off the injured list. So
he's a throwback guy. He's a pocket passer.
He had the great preseason, and I have a feeling we'll see him a lot faster than some might expect.
Yeah.
And just my comment on looking at this week's schedule and the lines looking just nutty and bizarre and off doesn't mean that, for example, Philadelphia 3.5, I didn't expect that line to be so low. It doesn't mean I don't think that there's still value on Dallas. It may just be, I'm surprised that the market sees, so little value in Philadelphia, so to speak. And there's other games that are in the exact same situation. And before we go into this week, I just want to make some comments because I was charting all my alternate lines last night because I keep a chart just for quick reference, as an alternative to betting parlay or teasers, I'm charting, various numbers of alt lines. And I felt it necessary to mention that you can't just exclude a shop like Caesars or MGM entirely, even though they have absurd lines. Like I just burst out laughing. They had the Chicago alternate line plus 7.5 at minus 769. And I'm like, what the fuck? And there's a handful of other lines that are just off on Pluto. But this is what the problem is, and how diligent you have to be when farming lines of value. They've got other lines that are best in market. So just because they're absolutely highway, robbery on a lot of lines, which these alternate lines, the vast majority of them are ripoffs, but you can find every week very fair, reasonable alternate lines. And unfortunately, you don't know when to expect them, who's going to be giving them. And there's just a lot of inconsistency with it. So I don't think you play around much with those alternate lines, do you?
No, I don't usually get involved in that, but it's probably in terms of moving on information and stuff like that, alternate lines probably are not the first lines that move. So you can pick apart one or two of them, slow moving, but I generally don't get involved in alternate lines.
Yeah, I'm just looking, like Caesars has, some laughable lines, a handful of laughable lines, and then they've got a handful of best in market lines. And it just seems like that's the way it goes with all of these places. And some may not realize, you didn't used to be able to, but Bookmaker allows you to parlay alternate lines, and they're usually the same way, a laughable line one week and best in market the next week. So you just have to keep on. And then what I've noticed is the start of the day, when you check first thing, they could have a silly line, and then all of a sudden they're best in market, 30 minutes before kick. So that's the other issue, is the redundancy of having to check.
Yeah, I mean, you really do, like I said in the chat, shop around. You have to have more than one out. You have to have books that don't clone one another. When something moves, everything moves at certain books, but it takes work. It takes effort to do what you do, Chris.
So Alan, we've got the Bills on a short week. This is the best possible situation for Houston, probably, is just getting a team like Buffalo on the short week on the road. Allen had 3 touchdowns passing and rushing. The only quarterback to do that, and he's done it twice.
Yeah.
Here's something that's interesting that I wrote down. You haven't done your expectations for props yet, have you? What do you have Cook at?
Oh no, I won't have time to do. I just wrote down some quick notes. I didn't know you were going to ask me about props. What did I write down in this game? My expectations are that a couple of wide receivers are not going to make as many catches as maybe they're going to be lined out to be in this particular game. I'm watching if Stroud plays. There's a connect in terms of some quarterbacks to some wide receivers and some quarterbacks to some running backs. And so if Stroud plays, he's more likely.
Stroud's out.
Stroud's out? Okay,
Yeah.
Then I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so I don't have expectations other than a couple of the lower level receivers for Buffalo. I expect to have fewer catches in this particular game. I think Houston's going to play press defense on them.
So we're at game 12 of the season, and you've got an over-under on a running back of 74 and a half or somewhere around there.
Is that Cook?
Yeah. And facing a team that hasn't even allowed a rusher to get close to that the entire season. So how do you factor that into your prop analysis?
Because Cook has a high yards per carry average, it signals to me that he could have 8 carries for 17 yards, and then the next carry could be 32 yards. So it's probably something that I wouldn't even get involved in because of his ability to break tackles or get out in open space. So it wouldn't be somebody that I would mainstream look at. Where would you have set this line? Because I believe I'm looking at my numbers. This is the line this is by far the line that I'm off the most on.
What would you have had it at? 4, 3.5?
I set it at 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this line's nuts.
Yeah.
Here's something that surprised me. I was kind of bringing it up last week, going, boy, like Jim Carrey. So you think there's a chance? If Houston wins this game, they have a 46% chance of making the playoffs. That's reasonable.
Yeah, because if Houston wins this game, it means that Buffalo might be a wild card. That means even though they still have New England on the schedule, they're falling further behind. And what you're saying there is if Buffalo's a wild card, Houston owns the tiebreaker advantage against them if they win this game.
Yeah, this is an important game. This is going to get full attention from Houston, full focus. They've got a defense. When you have a defense, look at the games last week with the teams that have defenses. You muck up offenses, and it changes the whole complexity of the game. And if you can get the jump on the opposing team and make them play from behind and get off their game plan the whole time, you're in it. So, Mills is not, an inept quarterback. I'd put him at like kind of middle of the road backup, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this game hinges not as much on Houston's defense, but on Houston's offense. What have we said all the time? What you want to do with the Josh Allens, the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mannings, whatever, high level quarterback, the best place to attack them is when Josh Allen is sitting on the bench so that he's not getting in rhythm. I think Houston has to move the chains in this game. And even though their running attack has been wildly inconsistent, you can run on Buffalo. And I think their game plan should be to mix in runs and passes to the extent that they're playing with time of possession in this game, because their defense can match up with Buffalo and Josh Allen until Josh Allen gets into rhythm.
Right. You don't want him to get into rhythm. I haven't seen an update on Schultz. I know he was banged up, and he's an important part of being able to help that offense.
He's caught 51 passes this year.
So I know that. Just hope he's playing, but so we're in agreement on that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Pittsburgh and the Bears. Rudolph. Rudolph is essentially a starter as far as I'm concerned. I don't value. I don't. Would you move the needle more than a half a point on a Rodgers in or out?
So this is the same as when do you go for it analytically. I move the needle based on who they're facing. And in this particular case, and against Seattle, against Cincinnati, I didn't move the needle even one point. Against Chicago, I could move the needle maybe a half a point, but not if we're talking about a less than 100% Rodgers.
Right.
In fact, I think Chicago would be more motivated to play their owner, so to speak, Aaron Rodgers, than they would with Rudolph. They may not know what to expect with Rudolph.
As it was mentioned by Omer, Bears have won 5 games within the trailing in the last 2 minutes. That's a sign of a pretty good team. They are alone in first place. Hard to believe it. No turnovers again.
Yeah.
I don't know. When do you step in front of the moving train? I'm certainly not going to.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is, Pittsburgh has a +8 turnover ratio, and Chicago is +16. So if you're looking for turnover regression, maybe you don't get it in this game, and you have to wait. Is there going to be turnover regression at Philly? You better believe so. At Green Bay, I think there'll be turnover regression. When they play Cleveland, maybe, depending on whose Cleveland quarterback is going to be. Then they have Green Bay, San Francisco. There's definitely going to be turnover regression, but maybe not this week.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's hilarious. They're both due for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're going to find Pittsburgh turnover regression as we get to the meat of their schedule, too.
We've got Tyrod Taylor starting for the Jets, putting Fields out of his misery. Jackson is not at practice, and there's about 6 or 7 other key starters not at practice or practicing today for Baltimore. I believe that's pretty much Jackson's regular MO, not to practice on Wednesdays. So
yeah,
no big deal there. Huge point spread. This seems sort of similar to last week, where I think the Jets will come to play. I don't think Baltimore's, I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park per se, because I'm not sure Baltimore really has that capability. I don't know, but they don't seem to be firing on all cylinders, and they don't need to be at this point. They just need to win. So, and they need to play, not get injured. So I think that's what their focus is going to be. It feels like a win and no cover sort of situation. What do you think?
I think we're seeing it similarly. Remember, Baltimore was playing its 3rd game on the road last week against Cleveland. Another issue in terms of that. Yeah. And Baltimore also.
How come you didn't bring that up in the show last week, Ron?
You can only bring up so much.
Jesus.
I'm telling you, Cleveland was a big play last week. It was the best one. Baltimore only has 15 defensive sacks. So it's not like they're getting to the quarterback. And you got Fields out there. Fields holds the ball like
Taylor's
all day and all night.
Starting.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the reason why Tyrod Taylor is the right choice for this game if you're the Jets, because Baltimore might sack Fields, but they don't get a chance to sack Fields. It's not that Tyrod's a great quarterback, but if he doesn't get sacked 5 times, at least he has a chance to complete passes against Baltimore's secondary. Now, the other interesting stat is that the Jets have 0 defensive interceptions this year, which is a world record for playing 11 games. So at some point, the Jets need to get close to some defender or get somewhere in the vicinity. So to me, this looks like a Jet New England game all over again. In the end, you're playing with the spread that's going to be right about the final result.
Yeah, that's what I think. But, the Baltimore's offense is a little bit of concern. I think they're 3 for 9 in their last 9 trips into the red zone. If I wrote down the right information, that's not very good for a team like that.
Tyrod Taylor revenge game. I don't know. Tyrod Taylor would like to get a win at any cost. It's funny. The Jets have been in a lot of games, but early in the season, they didn't know how to coach certain situations. They punted at certain times they shouldn't have. They went for field goals at certain times. Aaron Glenn was not really an offensive mastermind to begin with, and they made a lot of mistakes. But they've been competitive with a roster that's getting worse and worse.
Dart is on path to start against the Lions. The Giants are the number 31 run defense.
Yeah.
And the Lions like to run. So, but I think, when you really look at the playoff race, the Lions are, on that border cusp of, they can't slip up anymore at this point. So, I mean, it's not like their playoff leverage changes that dramatically, but it gets closer to 50%. A lot, and that would be ugly. JMO back in the fold again, as we mentioned a few weeks ago. It was expected that he was going to get more involved. He had that dumb shit penalty after he scored the touchdown.
Yes,
which was concerning. But 0 for 5 on fourth downs. Laporta gone for the season. They are going to get some players back this week, Rodriguez and somebody else, and they're 12-0 off of a loss. There aren't too many better 10-point teaser situations than the Lions this week. As far as covering that 10, I don't know.
I didn't know Laporta was out. Probably won't make any difference this week, but that's huge in some of those divisional games coming up. So, that's too bad as far as that's concerned. This is not a good matchup situation. If you look at the matchup analysis for the New York Giants, it's just not a good matchup situation for them. And for Detroit, what else did I write about Detroit? Well, I think it's a get well spot for any running back in this game, Montgomery or Gibbs. I think they're going to be able to do a lot of the things that they couldn't do when they were outside playing a Philadelphia attacking defense. So it looks night and day different. The only side if I were a guy who liked to lay 10 points, I would lay it with Detroit. I wouldn't look at the Giants, particularly in this situation.
I don't even show too much value on the Lions. Frankly, it's they need to. This offensive line is a problem. Goff had his worst career game last week against the Eagles, but it still needs to be said. I walk away with a bad taste in my mouth because the Lions, I felt kind of self-destructed, or they were. I feel that they should have won that game somehow, some way, even though they were down 10 late, but they were responsible for the game flow and why it went that way. And it just seemed to me that Detroit wasn't outclassed in that game in the least. Philadelphia left me with zero elevated view of them. It felt like, they're doing something. They held Love and Goff, to 16 points combined over 2 weeks. So that in itself, I guess, is impressive. They're doing something funky on defense. It's making it hard. But when aside from that, Philadelphia wasn't all that impressive. It really made me more concerned about Detroit.
I know we're going to talk about Philly later, but since you brought them up, it's really two sides to the story. I think based on the new personnel that they have, that any model that looks at Philly's defense has to upgrade them and has to put a little bit greater weight to what the personnel is now for Philly. That would be my advice, is that you have to give that a little bit greater weight because they're a different team defensively. They're excellent defensively. Now, offensively, you have every right to be concerned because if they had lost a couple of early games, the infighting on this team is amazing. They might have had a locker room problem if they'd lost a couple of earlier games. I think it's a very volatile offensive situation for Philly that at times is going to rear its ugly head when they play better defenses.
I have offensively, do you have a playoff team rated lower than Philadelphia?
I'd have to look at all the playoff teams, but offensively, this is not really a good offense. Their offensive line has allowed a lot of sacks. Their points is not really playoff worthy offensive attack. Barkley's not running the way he was. They're below average yards per carry running. This is likely a 20 to 23 offense.
Yeah, I have them rated 4 notches lower than Tampa Bay offensively as the lowest playoff team, team that's going to be in the playoffs. So
Tampa's is fixable because they're without Evans and they're without Irving.
Yeah. Patriots and the Bengals. Chase is out. He was spitting at somebody. I mean, what the hell is wrong with these people? I mean, and the Patriots have already exceeded their season win total. You can cash those tickets.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say about this game. It feels like it's going to be one of those. It just seems like I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah. I think this was a bad game for Chase to miss because New England wants you to throw the ball because they stopped the run so well. I'm not going to endorse New England because I still think the back door is open for Joe Flacco to throw that late touchdown and stuff. But I don't want to. I agree with you. Not much to say about this game. Maybe they cover in the back door. Maybe they don't cover. But my expectation is New England will find a way to win.
I mean, at 3 wins, they really should be hanging it up. I mean, they should sit Burrow the rest of the season.
Yeah, they should.
And as Omer pointed out, Hendricks is out again, or Hendrickson is out again. So
it's amazing because even with him, they are 31st and dead last in sack production.
Well, I'm just happy that the Lions didn't grab him because he seems injury prone, and they would have had to have overpaid for him.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a great player, but
yeah,
let them roll the dice. The Vikings, Seattle and the Titans. There's not much to say here, is there?
No, I don't think so. It's weird because under normal conditions, Tennessee would have an incredible schedule edge. Here's their schedule: home game, bye, home game, home game, home game. I mean, that's 6 weeks in the NFL that you don't go on the road, but they've lost all these home games.
Going back to the Detroit game, I don't know. Do you know what's up with the Lions for the next 6 games?
Do I know? I have their schedule.
What is the common theme on those next 6 games?
Let's see. 1, 2. I don't know if there's a common theme, but they have 3 home right now. And then they got 3 or 4 on the road. They're going to play all the divisional games. They're going to play a lot of playoff teams.
Dome.
Good point.
Yep. So that might help them a little
until
bit.
Chicago at the end, unless they build a dome between now and January.
I think the only comment that I have written down is JSN is the first player to have 75 yards plus the first 10 games of their career. It's pretty impressive.
He's probably going for 11 against Tennessee.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Tennessee normally would have a huge scheduling edge. All these home games not have to travel, and Seattle off a divisional game that was down to the last kick. You would think that Seattle would be in a very bad frame of mind. So I guess I would look Tennessee in this game, but Seattle is by far the better team metrically.
Yeah, it's not close.
Yeah. But, then how much do you asked this question about 5 or 6 weeks ago? In fact, you didn't ask it in the form of a question. You went ahead and said, do you think that there are more scheduling situations this year than usual? And I said, yes, because the NFL doesn't care about safety and this and that. They want Kansas City on a Wednesday, Friday, whatever. They got games all over the continent, and far away. And they've got 3 road games, 3 home games, 3 games in 11 days, 4 games in 17 games. They're creating more situations because of the way they're scheduling.
Vikings and the Packers. Got a little sticker shock there at that 6.5, 7 that they put out. What about you?
Yep, I said it. Now I have Minnesota's power rating circled, but you're right. I said it at 5. This is probably, other than the Buffalo Houston game, this is the second most line that I'm off of. So why is that?
Well, you know what it is. There's a half a dozen games that have lines that we are just not accustomed to seeing between teams, or just surprise us, out of the blue for whatever reason. And this is one of them. But I don't think that the line's that far off, frankly. Even though I'm not that high on Green Bay. The Vikings with a win, their playoff expectancy goes to 13%. Green Bay with a loss, it goes down to 55%. When you've got this divisional rivalry, there's no love lost. Minnesota's going to come to play regardless. So it just seemed like a lot of points. I'm glad I don't have to be involved in the game, Frank.
Yeah, I'm not going to be involved. The 3 points I would make on this game is, yeah, you're right about they're going to come to play. And they've been competitive at Green Bay. So there's no problem with them being, and they've been competitive at Green Bay with smaller lines. So now they're getting 6.5. They're not used to getting 6.5 points in this rivalry. The problem I have is that I think, based on my matchup analysis, Minnesota is more likely to commit a turnover or be -1 or -2 in turnovers in this game, which would be worth 3.5 points. And this is a real sweet spot for Micah Parsons against a poorly coached Minnesota offensive line. If McCarthy doesn't watch out in this particular game, he's going to be having dinner with Micah Parsons during the game, because it's going to be a problem.
I've got another note here that Love, his receivers are dropping the ball at one of the highest rates again. That's something we talked about coming into the season, and they can't seem to get that problem fixed.
His best and most reliable pass catcher, Reed, hasn't been on the field for a lot of weeks now, and I don't know when he's coming back. So he's throwing to guys other than Wicks that have drop balls in the past. They have these tendencies to drop balls. And then he's missing Tucker Kraft, of course, as well. So he's got pass catchers that are good with their hands that are injured.
Well, we've got Indianapolis. This is the game of the week as far as I'm concerned. Very interesting game. Indianapolis, the Chiefs are 5-5. If they lose this game, their chances of making the playoffs reduced to 33%. Mm-hmm. As it stands now, they're at 63%, and they only bump it up a couple of percentage points with the win. So, you talked about Pat Mahomes earlier. He's got 4 interceptions and been sacked 9 times over the last 3 games. So that's a little bit of elevated negativity. And the other concern was that Denver knew the plays ahead of time. I forgot about that. So one of the Kansas City players commented on it, said they knew our plays ahead of time. So what does that, that reflects poorly on the coaching. I don't really have any more details on how that comes to play. I mean, obviously, teams are trying to get the edge on other teams by stealing signs and such, but that's a concern that the Kansas City defense is that or the Kansas City offense can be that transparent to the other team.
Yeah, there was no creativity at the running back position. That's why Mahomes has had to scramble a lot. So
Pacheco's at least practicing this week, but he was practicing last week too, wasn't he?
Yeah, maybe he comes back this week. Maybe I don't know that he's 100% if he comes back this week. And either way, he's not a creative necessary running back. He just runs angry. That's what I've always said about him. So their creativity comes in the pass game only because they have a lot of different toys to work with. When Worthy is healthy, when Rice is running across the middle, they can use Kelsey productively that way. They run Thornton deep. They run a couple of other guys here and there. And there's a lot to like and the schedule is going to ease up. If you look at the last part of the schedule after the Indianapolis game, they're at Dallas, which doesn't play much defense. They host Houston, which obviously plays great defense, but will be offensively challenged. They host the Chargers in a revenge game. KC's usually very good at revenge games. They're at Tennessee, revenge again against Denver, and then they're at Vegas to close the year. So realistically, with 7 games to go, they're 5-5. I think they're going to notch 5 more wins, maybe 6. Depends on what you think about this game, but the question is, will 10-7 get them in the playoffs? And it might not.
I'm interested. We'll get to see the real Indianapolis, what they're made of, especially coming off a bye. So I think it just makes it intriguing. You know what I can't come to grips with is that it's an early game, and that it really has late game written all over it. And I'm not even sure the Eagles-Cowboys matchup. I guess at the beginning of the season, it fit that niche. But
Chris, it wouldn't hurt the NFL if they went from 7 to 6 games in the morning and 4 to 5 games in the afternoon. It's not the end of the world if they did that.
So we found out why CeeDee Lamb was benched on that first drive. I guess he was vomiting at the Red Rock Casino at 7:30 in the morning from being out.
I'll have to read that.
Yeah. So
another Cincinnati Bengal with attention to detail.
Let's see here. Jacksonville and the Cardinals. Brissett 445 completions, or 452 yards, 47 for 57. And they've committed 17 penalties against San Francisco. And the Jaguars are off of an overachieving game. Jacksonville, a small favorite. I think they moved up to 3, didn't they? Yeah, they moved up to 3. Injury bug hitting Arizona also.
Yeah, they're down another running back. They're down 3 running backs. Harrison's out again.
Yeah.
So they basically threw 47 passes to almost just 3 guys. They had one guy who's not a household name. He caught 15 passes. That was Wilson. McBride, we know he catches a lot of passes. He caught 10 or 11 passes. So there's a lot of stuff there. Jacksonville's defense, I don't know where you have them rated, but they're better than I thought they would be this year. Not exactly getting to opposing quarterbacks, but I still have them slightly better than average.
Yeah, same here. I have them just outside the top 10.
Motivation is a hard thing to judge. I think Arizona is a train wreck right now in a lot of different ways. But one of my favorite situations says that Arizona is the right side in this game.
Well, my impression of Arizona at this point is they don't give a shit in a good way. It's like it's just like if you saw that documentary of the minor, Kurt Russell's dad putting together the Portland minor league baseball team that became, the sellout every game type of team where they didn't give a crap. It was just a bunch of misfits. They went out and played. They had fun. They didn't care what anybody thought. And I think that's what Arizona's about now. I mean, they don't have the talent to do any damage, but they got they can stay in games and they can cause problems.
Yeah, I will probably play Arizona this week. I just wish that I don't trust them in crunch time because I don't like their defensive coordinator. I don't like their defensive schemes. We've seen them lose countless number of fourth quarter leads. But I just think that situationally, this is a good spot for Arizona.
Well, I think you're right. But I will not be playing Arizona. And you will not be playing Jacksonville.
Then we move on to Shedeur Sanders against the only team that he stands a chance against.
Yeah, you're right. It's just
God, what an ugly game this is. This could set football back. They should have throwback uniforms for this game.
well, the bright spot is Myles Garrett is going for the sack record. He's close to pace, and he should be able to help that. And then I don't know how to pronounce the kid's name, the rookie that they drafted. The hell's his name? Schwessinger.
Oh, yeah. He's having a big year.
I gave you that on a tip from somebody else. I passed around defensive player rookie of the year and at 30-1, and he's now minus 220 for that. So hopefully he pads some stats this week on that front.
Yeah. Ashton Genty, he ran maybe 6 times last week with no success. They're probably going to go back to the basics. They threw the ball something like 21 of their first 24 times last week. The over-under in this game, 36.5 last I saw.
Yep, we're now done. There's 36s everywhere now.
Okay, so they really don't expect anything out of these offenses.
Well, it reminds me of that Jacksonville 3-0 game. Isn't that what the score was? 3-0. There was a Raider game that ended 3-0 in overtime, wasn't there?
Yeah, this is.
How are the Raiders going to score? I mean, the Browns have a great defense.
Well, their splits are bad on the road, and it's a dome-type situation. So Geno's hardly a perfect quarterback. This needs to be his last year as a starter in the NFL. But I could see him completing a couple of passes in the dome. I could see him. Brock Bowers is tough to stop. So, I mean, Vegas should score on Cleveland because Cleveland's road dome in this situation. But it would behoove somebody to block, the pass rusher in this particular game.
We've got 8 minutes to get you out of here. So Atlanta and the Saints, Penix out, Cousins in, Saints off the bye. Saints just dumped Brandon Cooks today. What do you make of this game?
Typically, you look dog and you look visitor. But the problem is Atlanta is down a few players. Aren't they down more than just their quarterback?
Yeah,
Drake London is out.
Is he out for sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's a massive loss because Drake London has made some acrobatic catches these last 2 or 3 weeks that other receivers wouldn't make. So, it's probably going to.
They've got no coaching either.
Yeah. I mean, this is the worst coaching staff in the league. They're going to have to. I mean, I think they run Deshaun Robinson 23 times in this game and see what happens. New Orleans has a decent D for all the problems they've had offensively. New Orleans isn't stopping the run that well. I mean, decent. I'm saying it's not bottom 5, not bottom 8 type defense. It's not fantastic, but they've probably been on the field a lot too. Yeah, normally I'd look only the visitor in this. If the line went to 3, I'd have to look at Atlanta. Otherwise, I'll pass.
Philadelphia and Dallas. We've talked about these teams.
Yeah, I wish I would have done the look ahead line. Look ahead line was 6, I believe, Philly.
They gave AJ 11 targets, He still had under 50 yards, so there's just something off kilter there. Johnson's out for Philadelphia now. But it seems like Dallas can, Dallas is going to, there's no love lost between these two teams. So it will be interesting.
Well, Dallas certainly thinks they're in the race, 4-5-1. Can't lose a home game. Even if they're not really in the race, they think they're in the race. Not a good situational spot for Philly for a couple of different reasons. But I think the line, the line has really ticked down. Everybody saw what happened on Monday night, even as it was against the Raiders. So what do we have? It's short 3.5 or a long 3.
You can bet 3 or bet 3.5, and the Dallas playoff probability goes all the way up to 21% with a win. So
yeah. Based on what Jerry Jones is thinking, he thinks he's in the playoffs, but he'll have to win a few more games.
Well, I got to say, it's about time. I mean, the Rams have been sliding by with this mediocre quarterback that's finally over 500 at 116 and 115.
Yeah.
Let's see what they have not trailed in the game since week 6. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that. That's an impressive stat.
That's an impressive stat. The Tampa Bay seems to be, they're not getting back the name players, but I think they've got some new people practicing and ready to plug and play.
Where do you have them defensively?
Who, the Rams or Tampa?
Tampa.
In the dead smack middle.
Yeah. They have a +9 turnover ratio, but the Rams are +10, so there's no edge there. And I'd probably say offhand that Baker Mayfield is more likely to throw an interception in this game as opposed to Stafford.
I would agree with you that I don't think we'll see 7 on that game. I mean, we do have some soft 7s in the market, but it seems like a lot of points.
Yeah. Running back Tucker, he really came alive. He wasn't supposed to be the lead back last week, but he had a great game. I think Tampa's going to need to run to take the pressure off their passing game in this one.
Yeah, well, he's not going to be sneaking up this week like he did last week. He had two long runs for touchdowns, didn't he?
Yeah, he kept their lead running back off the field, who luckily got 3 more yards in the second half. But basically, Tampa ran well. I mean, they ran wildly last week against Buffalo, which is a Buffalo concern. But the Rams are much stronger against the run than Buffalo.
Bryce Young throws for 448 yards, career high, and he isn't even number 1 for the week as a Brissett.
And he was sacked 5 times.
This is a goofy game. This is just a goofy game. If Carolina wins, they have almost a 50% chance of making the playoffs. I wouldn't expect they have much of a chance to win. How did they follow up from last week? How did they do that last week? I'm not even sure.
Atlanta helped them. Carolina's remaining schedule: hosting the Rams, bye week, very late bye week, at New Orleans, home to Tampa, which could be important, home to Seattle, and then at Tampa. So they play Tampa 2 of the last 3 weeks, which keeps them relevant if they steal a win here.
As Birdie points out, San Francisco's big weakness is the run, and Carolina loves to run.
You think your big weakness is the run? Because San Francisco allows 7 out of every 10 passes to be completed. I think San Francisco's weakness is they don't get to opposing quarterbacks. They have 12 defensive sacks.
That's only one per game.
I think I said since he was last with 14, since he's next to last, San Francisco is last in getting to opposing quarterbacks. prime time, what do you factor anything in terms of this game being prime time?
For my betting purposes, it's critical that I have Monday and Sunday night games. And I may not do anything with the Monday game. And the only reason I have anything on the Sunday night game is because I had to quickly get in a bet last week and threw the Rams in plus 3.5. So otherwise, I might not ever play on that game.
Yeah. I think this is an advantage for San Francisco to play this game in prime time.
Yeah, because it's going to motivate them. Otherwise, they could have been caught flat-footed on a Sunday afternoon game.
Yeah, I mean, Purdy adds a dimension to the team. McCaffrey has a chance to run on Carolina's defense. And San Francisco, I know they haven't played a lot of primetime games recently, although some are divisional games that they've held their own in. San Francisco historically has handled this situation better than Carolina.
You don't think McCaffrey is stressed out about facing his former team?
No, I don't. I think San Francisco is in third place in the NFC West. And if they want to continue to climb or try to climb, this is a very important game to them. I don't expect them to win the division, but every win means another mark, another notch in terms of making the playoffs and closing some other team out. What that other team's going to be, I don't know. But right now, they'd be closing out maybe Detroit even, huh?
I have Atlanta and San Francisco and Carolina's defense back to back.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that.
So the only difference between these two teams are the offenses.
Yeah, well, there's a big difference in that. And also the Carolina sack ratio is actually, the ratio itself is worse than San Francisco's. Yeah. The point spread is up there. You hate to lay 6.5, 7 points and stuff like that. But I believe I have San Francisco, or will have San Francisco, in at least one money line parlay.
I can't blame you for that. And actually, I can blame you for that. You don't want to look that direction because the money line is painfully overpriced.
Yeah, well, that requires me to tease somebody with the 6-point tease. And
yeah, when you're looking at like minus 330 as the market low, that's when you want to start looking at your teaser options, because you're just getting brutalized on the parlay. So
yeah, I have to look at what the money line was at the time I played it, but because I set this line 7.5.
Well, and you've got value on the Rams also, because your Rams money line costs more than what a teaser costs. So technically those two match up.
Yeah, I don't want the Rams in a money line because I trust Tampa's offense more than I trust Carolina's offense.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I don't blame you there. Let's see what else you got here. Your Packers.
My Packers. No, I'm already weighing too many points if straight. I'm not getting a full value.
And I know it sounds silly, but if you do like your Houston, since it would be the lead teaser,
right? That's understandable.
You can take them. I would do a 3-team teaser and start off with Houston, over that 11.5, and just trade it in for a straight bet if you were considering a straight bet.
Yeah, I'll look at some options. I do have San Francisco winning this game at a pretty high percentage. That's all I have.
Okay, we're at your hard stop. So again, we're going to be back next Tuesday at noon. It's Thanksgiving week, and some people have family coming in to visit them, and needs to jockey everybody else's schedule around, and that's good. So that's all I got.
Thanks for all the comments. Sorry we didn't get to a lot of them there, but any comments that are placed after on the YouTube, we'll try to get to. Everybody have a great week.
Yeah, and we really appreciate it. We get a lot of comments, and I've been extremely lax in responding to comments. It doesn't mean that they're not appreciated. We appreciate everybody watching, and it just a lot of people reach out to us and make comments and observations and stuff, and we appreciate it. We're just having a chit chat. It brings us up to speed. Forces it's a part of the process of schedule and routine for us. So that's why we do it. And I know that we share some stuff that's unusual, and we don't try to sell you a damn thing. So that's what's all most important. Buy nothing from us. So we'll see you next week.